Bonjour and welcome back. Today I want to discuss a basic VLOOKUP function and walk you through the thought process of each command in the function. I'll also briefly discuss absolute versus relative referencing since we'll be using both in this example. What we have here are the stats of a basketball team, and what we want to accomplish is copy a whole row into this highlighted row and have the numbers be an exact match. So the first thing I'm going to do is do data validation on the names to prevent a spelling error. First thing I'm going to do is do a list. The source will be from column A. Command Shift down, enter, and now we have all of the names for the players on this list. We're gonna start the VLOOKUP function by indicating it in this cell right here. Let's go ahead and open up the VLOOKUP function. What we're trying to accomplish using this formula is to identify the points per game for a selected player. The lookup value will be the player name. I've already created a list using data validation in this cell, so I'm just going to refer to this cell. Alternatively, you can type in the name, but it has to be exact and it saves you time to just create a list using data validation. The next thing is what table of information am I looking at? I am looking at this information, so I'm going to highlight all of this. Third, what column of information will I ultimately be pasting here based on the player that I select? I'm looking for the points per game, and in this red box, that would be column 2. Finally, do I want an approximate match or an exact match? We want the exact average points per game pasted here. So if you want an approximate match, you can type in 1, but we want an exact match, so we're going to go ahead and type in 0. And then we can select a player, and we can see that the information matches with the number on the table. Now, you might be tempted to drag this cell reference across the row to copy the lookup function, but you'll notice that we didn't lock our cell references. So as we move the formula across the row, so will these numbers and letters. Let's see what happens. You'll notice that the row does match with the row of information here, but minus, this should be in a percentage format, but this method wouldn't work when you're dealing with a larger set of data. You'll see why. This is now referring to B17, or points per game, and the table moved, so it's still referring to the second column. According to this red table, it is still the second column of this table, and we still want an exact match. Similarly, we select on this one, and now it's referring to this cell. It's dependent on the 5.4. The lookup value for the steals per game is a 5.4. It's not a name. And when you're dealing with a fixed large set of data, you want to make sure that the information doesn't change. I'm sorry, the reference point is similar. It's the same one across all columns. So what we want to do is have this red table not move and have the lookup value always be the player name. Otherwise, it's going to be relative to the cells, and we want to do an absolute reference. We want the player name to stay fixed. We want the table name to stay fixed. We're going to have to change the column index number dependent of what we're looking for now that the table is fixed, and we're still going to want an exact match. So where does that leave us? We are going to then instead use absolute referencing so that when we drag this information across, that the information is dependent of the player name. So let me go ahead and click on this. So let's say, let me further explain why these values need to be locked. Let's say that, so this formula right now is based on B17. Sorry, yeah, it's based on this cell, B17. Let's say that Klay Thompson also had, oops, Klay Thompson also had a 30.1 average. And I change it over to this. This information isn't going to change. Why? Because based on this value, B17, there's two that have a 30.1, but the VLOOKUP function is referencing still to row 6. The information hasn't changed, and this information right here doesn't match with what it should be. So again, we need to lock the cells so that the lookup value stays the same, in this case a player name. So what I'm going to do is rewrite the VLOOKUP function so that it refers to a fixed lookup value. Let's go ahead and clear contents. I'm going to go ahead and delete this too meanwhile. So what I'm going to demonstrate next is how I prefer to use a VLOOKUP function. So the lookup value, I want it to stay fixed, and the table array, I want it to stay fixed. But now that my table won't move, the column index will change. So now it is 2, 3, 4, and 5, whereas when the table started right here, this would be 2. When the table started here, this would be 2. So I'm gonna put these numbers on top, and you'll see how I'm gonna use them next. So the lookup value will be cell A17, and I'm gonna lock that up. The table array will be this table of information. I'm gonna lock both the column and the row. The column index number, now here, because I want to drag this formula down, I'm gonna reference this cell and not lock it, so that when I move, it will then indicate the correct column index, so it can communicate with this table. And finally, I want an exact match, so I'm gonna put 0 here. And let's go ahead and look at a player. Let's drag this across. And if we look at the information, it's now exact. It gives us the information we want for a selected player. And now when I select a different player, alas, there we go. So now we have the right information, and you'll see that for any given player, the information will just pop up. You have a clear view of the information that you want from this table. And now you can see how the lookup value and the table stayed locked, but the column index number did change, and now I'm referring to the number here. You can put 3, you can put 2, you can put the column index number, but I knew that I wanted to drag this information down and that the number was going to change. So I decided to refer to another cell with the value I wanted instead of typing it in. See here as well. Change therefore, the table and the lookup value stayed the same. And here again. And so this is useful, using this method is useful for when you have information that can change, but the first column, the player, will stay the same. And again, data validation can be a useful tool, especially when you have a fixed number or list of names, numbers, whatever it is that you're looking at, and you can always refer to it as an absolute value. Thank you for your time, and I hope you know a little bit more about the statistics for a basketball team. Cheers!